And also, like, you can always calculate the brand equity in your head, which is to say, like, well, if I sold No Jumper right now, I could get X amount of dollars or whatever, you know?
Catalog
so, like,
is crazy.
But you always think of that in your head where it's like, I might not have this amount in the bank, but what I have as potential in the future is also something that could be considered.
I could never see you selling No Jumpers, your baby.
I think about it.
See you selling it,
but I think about it sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck would I do if I wasn't doing this shit? Because sometimes, like, I was just in Hawaii for a week, just kicking back, feet up. Sorry to everybody that we missed last week's episode, but we did 7 interviews last week, and I think at one point it was supposed to be like 10 or 11, but a few of them got moved around. But basically, like, I was just in Hawaii kicking it on the beach and stuff. And one thing about Hawaii is you just look at all these people. If you choose to live there, a huge percentage of people who live there will finish up their day at work or whatever and go straight to the beach, because you really do not have much of a reason to be living in this isolated ass island place unless you really loved the sun and the beach and swimming or surfing or whatever. And I love that shit too, but I can't in good conscience give up on all the momentum that I have and the shit that I have going on and all the people that are relying on me to just go kick my feet up. Now, Vlad is 11 years older than me, and I was just recently listening to him in an interview, and he's talking about how he's been really actually thinking about retiring. And I think about it a little bit sometimes, like, damn, if I was at his age, if I was 50, would I want to retire? But I also feel like, what the fuck else would I want to do with my time besides have conversations,
crazy.
Chop it up, put it on YouTube, get all the feedback, look through 1,000 comments. I mean, that shit is like so fun to me. So I feel like I've seen this with my parents too, though, where my parents for years and years and years would say, like, I'm never going to retire. I love my job, rah, rah, rah. And then all of a sudden you're like 63 and you're like, well, shit, I am slowing down. You know, life is not quite as exciting or as fun. Like, even with my mom now, like, she was a librarian for all these years, waking up at 5:30 in the morning so she could
now
drive.
She's probably like, fuck.
Now she sits around and she reads books and she watches fucking movies on TV and she hangs out with my dad and they go out for lunches and shit like that. And, you know, they kind of earn that at a certain point in their life. But for me to actually stop, because there is, bro, I could just do plug talk and just be chilling and just fuck.
Yeah.
But that sounds gay as fuck. I don't want to do that. I want to be in here turning up with the boys, bumming a parliament.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for,
Talk
man.
about that
after
shit.
like watching, like, you know, being a part of No Jumper and shit, after watching how you move, you work a lot. You know what I'm saying? Compared to a lot of niggas, like, this nigga really be cranking out mad shit. Like, even in Hawaii, the whole time nigga in Hawaii, he's still working. So it's like, bro, really, you know what I'm saying? Really be working.
That motivates me. Like I said, I don't know if you caught the shout out. Did you watch the full rant with me and Academic?
No, I did not see the whole thing. We're definitely going to be getting into that. What'd you say?
Did you catch the shout out? Even before we even get into that, I'm just saying, I said, what dude that came from my background and been struggling with legal problems and hustling and it being here and it's gone and all that, what dude would turn down the opportunity to learn from one of the greatest podcasters in the game right now?
Appreciate that.
I sit back and I watch this nigga do 6 interviews in a day and all that. It be some days that I pull up and I ain't even on schedule and I could leave and I stay and I hop in on interviews that I didn't know was going on or nothing, just because I see him doing it and I know, guess what? These interviews is gonna get me together to where I could perfect my craft. So I'm right here learning. Motherfucker tell me I talk too much and I cut people off and I don't. I sit back. My bad. I sit back and I started to stop doing it. When I catch myself, I be like, oh, my bad, go ahead. You get what I'm saying? I only can get greater at this shit. This is 3 months in. You niggas built your life practicing for YouTube, man. I'm just a viral street nigga that just actually is smart enough to sit down and interview people and be right here and have these type of conversations.
I'm 2 years in, right? 2 years into this shit. When I came in, I was like, this shit was new. Like, I caught myself cutting people off, talking too much, like I'm saying, not letting them finish what they're gonna say. You know, I've learned a lot here, homie, and I just, shit, my nigga, I can't thank bros enough, you know, because I used to try to go as hard as him. I'm like, nigga, I gotta knock out at least 5 interviews a day. Now I was going crazy. 5, 6 interviews, nigga. I'm drained at the end of the day, bro. Like,
I feel like I've learned that that's not the move either,
that ain't
because
even the move.
sometimes I can do it if it comes down to it, and it's like I have to do it, but
You're not interested.
you do that for like more than a day or two, you really start burning out, and it's really hard. And especially like, I watch Joe Rogan and he'll sit and have a 3-4 hour conversation. I do that shit sometimes, but I'm telling you, if I got 4 fucking interviews for that day, I'm definitely not sitting down with somebody for more than 2 hours, you know? Yeah. But like, I don't know, like, I feel like that is the conversation that anybody who works here or does content here that I want to always be able to have is like, let's be able to have a conversation about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and have that conversation without the ego making it so that you take offense to it or whatever, which I felt like I always was trying to, and I made an error too. I can admit when I was wrong, is that I did too much of that shit on camera live, where somebody would be doing some lame ass joke over and over, and I would just tell them like on the podcast, like, yo, that shit corny. Like you got to stop with that joke. Like that shit is not funny or whatever. And then people get defensive because they know that there's 100,000 people watching them get corrected or whatever. That's not the ideal way to handle it. But I definitely think like, in general, like we got to be able to have those conversations about what works and what doesn't, because the people who are winning the most in the podcast space are the people who are actually having those conversations behind closed doors. I could tell, as much as Joe Budden be acting like a bitch ass sometimes. You
got to be coachable.
You got to be able to have the conversation behind, like he does that with his co-hosts, is that they clearly are putting a lot of thought into how these conversations are going to play out, and they get themselves educated. If anything, I wish sometimes that I wasn't so knee deep in the interviews, because of the fact that if I wasn't doing so many interviews, then I would be able to really micromanage the art of us just sitting here having conversations and shit, when in reality we pretty much just plop down and just go for it.
We go for
and
it.
just see what happens, which I feel like the fans, if anything, they like us being a little bit more
vulnerable,
chaotic,
I call it. Like it's
yeah.
vulnerable because it's not scripted.
Right.
It's not. We're not coming here. Okay, this is the agenda. This is how we're gonna talk about this. No, you ready to go have a dope ass conversation today? Nigga, Brick say on 6-0. Let's go. Nigga, you be like, yep, let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Reem, I'm down. Let's go. You know what I mean? Because we know what the fuck we're supposed to be doing here, bro. We're not. None of us at this table are dummies, homie.